So one of our final interviews is with Jordan from HotelTechReport.com.
Thanks for having me.
I should always add that on, right? So for those who are not familiar with your business, it's a pretty interesting business. Let's walk them through that. What do you do?
Yeah, so Hotel Tech Report is the #1 ratings and reviews website for hotel technology globally. We basically like to think of ourselves as TripAdvisor for hotel tech. We have, as we see in a conference like this, hundreds and thousands of vendors globally that serve on both the global and regional level. We have 57 different categories of technology within our platform. We enable hoteliers to use user-generated content to vet the vendors that they're going to bring on for their properties. So we found that hoteliers are more often than not, they're not digitally native a lot of times at their jobs. When you look at a category like revenue management, it's only 7% penetration of hotels using revenue management software. Most of the people and hoteliers that are reviewing on our site are not switching from one vendor to another, they're switching from pen and paper. And so this industry is just getting wired up from an operational perspective. And so what we do is we allow them to easily, in a digestible way, access information by seeing what their peers are saying about a vendor that helps them vet the vendors that they work with. And to date, we have about 38,000 hotelier users in our database. We work with 330 hotel technology companies, and we help promote them to a very global user base, about half in the US, so we're definitely US focused, but about 25% in Europe and 15% in Asia, and then kind of rest of the world.
And are those reviews? I was thinking about interviews, of course. Are the reviews verified, or how do you know that person has that technology in their stack?
Yeah. So first off, every review comes in and gets authenticated with LinkedIn. So we only allow someone, if they are a verified hotelier on LinkedIn, to leave a review on the site. Beyond that, we allow each vendor so they'll get a notification anytime a review comes in for one of their products. Once that review comes in, if they believe that it's a review that's not valid, we then they'll flag it in the system. We automatically send an email notification to that hotelier, letting them know that they have to send us a screenshot or an invoice to verify that they use that software. If we don't hear back within a few days, the review gets pulled off the site. Fortunately, we've had no bad actors, and it's kind of an awkward place for a vendor to go and ask for reviews of a customer that doesn't exist. So we've found that it's actually been a really efficient system, but we have lots of checks and balances in place to make sure that the system is accurate and that we have the best information around.
And the vendors like this, or is it, because it seems like you were shining a light in a corner that maybe had no light at all before, besides maybe on the trade show or people talking face to face?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say 98% have liked it. We certainly have had some vendors that it's a little bit of an awkward place when you're kind of getting into the area of transparency for an industry that hasn't had it before. The nice thing is that most of the vendors in our space are pretty familiar with the importance of ratings and reviews. So yes, it was a little bit of a challenge to get them really on board with it for some of them. But all around, we've pretty much gotten the reaction of how has this not existed to date? And this is just an extremely efficient marketing channel that creates this trust with vendors that a white paper or a case study is not going to create. That's going to tell you a full story. This is going to give you the information that you need. So that's like the what to believe, and then we think reviews are why you should believe it, the reason that you should believe that that's the case.
Do you give any recommendation to hotels when they are vetting? Obviously, look at the platform, right? Look at the reviews, but when they're vetting different technology partners, what are some things you can do to make sure you're getting what you said, what they promised you, but also that you're happy with it and you don't have to switch? Because if you do revenue management software, it's really tough. Once you onboard a lot of these softwares for B2B, it's hard to get out. I mean, you've made the choice and you're stuck, good or bad.
Yeah, so I think for companies that do have flexibility working with an open marketplace like a Snapshot or a Pelio, there's a lot of options out there that allow you to do just that allow you to switch on and off different systems and run experiments like every other industry does. And it's really nice that we're moving there. But for hotels that are making more committed decisions, I would say that it's all about understanding, the technology side of things sometimes gets overplayed. Just like the hotel business, the technology business isn't just about products and code, it's about people and organizations. Understand the level of interaction you're going to have with the organization. Understand the support that you're going to have behind your initiative. Are you going to have the right training for your staff, the right implementation? All those things are just as important as the code is. And so making sure that you have a vendor who's not just modern, but someone who actually cares about you. We have a lot of hoteliers that love products from smaller companies. So as a former hotelier, I would often avoid smaller companies, but it's just like anything else. When you work with a smaller company, a regional company, you're able to get better service because every single deal matters to them, and it's not just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, that support business. What's the good of a great tool if you have no idea how to use it, or when it breaks, it takes 48 hours for you to figure it out.
Absolutely, absolutely.
There's been a lot of talk. I interviewed Gino from OTA Insight about how you need to look and make sure your rates are accurate, because just because you told a particular channel that the rate is this, if it goes haywire, you could be in a situation with a vendor where your rate, people are actually booking a hotel that's the wrong price or something, and they're not responding. So I would assume you would honor those, right? So it could cost you money.
Yeah, absolutely. Gino's great. Saw him the other night.
Yeah, he's opinions. I like it. It's like he's not afraid to say what he thinks. When you're looking at hotel technology, do you feel, especially from your former Starwood background, right?
Yes.
Do you think we're in a better place than we were before? Have we done enough work? Are we on a good track? Where are we?
Yeah, I think on the vendor side, we're in a really good place. One of the things that we thought was initially going to be a bit awkward was having all the vendors in one place in our database. We thought that would make this kind of zero-sum, competitive, adverse scenario, and it actually turned out that when you're creating a market, you need to educate the market. Educating an entirely new category, which is really what hotel technology is. Obviously, it's not entirely new, but overall there are so many different technologies that hoteliers need to get educated on. The only way that we all break through, we all win, and that includes our end users, is by working together, creating that education. It's not just one vendor telling their story, it's all vendors coming together to tell the story of a category, and that's going to raise the tide for all ships.
Yeah, because once you have to kind of abide by that and the vendors see it, it sets that bar a little higher, right?
Yeah, and I like to use the analogy of, like, you look at Nike. Nike has the biggest scale in the market, and so they're going to have the most sophisticated technology and operating infrastructure. You look at our industry, and the players who are the biggest brands often are working off of legacy technology. So if you're an owner you're looking to develop a branded property or independent, you might be hamstringed by going with a branded property and getting worse technology than you would on your own. And so we really need to revisit how brand standards work with technology products. Brands need to be using their infrastructure and their buying power to demand better technology, to run tests that, like Nassim Taleb would call anti-fragile. You need to run A/B tests between your properties and decide what's best, not just use what was best 20 years ago. So I think they're starting to get a little bit of education on that and see that you need to have a flexible and agile infrastructure. But the trend towards independent hotels is undeniable. The wave is coming, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on everyone to make sure that we're all operating efficiently. And guess what? Airbnb's in the market. Hotels are now selling through to Airbnb, and so there's a new distribution channel. So I think technology and the efficient market, the free market, are going to move all things in the right direction. Look, it may still be a little bit early on that front. So you never want to kind of like try and pigeonhole an exact timing on it, but I think within the next 10 years here, we're starting to see a real move towards an understanding of technology. Guess what? We have lots of front office managers who are reviewing technology on our site. The general manager of today isn't a digital native in terms of their role. When they started their career, they were doing everything on pen and paper, everything was manual. The front office managers who are going to be the general managers of tomorrow, these people are digital natives. They've been using Alice and HelloShift and Core and all these great products on a day-to-day. They know that this is not a nice to have for their business. This is a need to have to run a great business, and this is a need to give great experiences for guests. It's not about using technology to eliminate the interaction with guests. It's saying, hey, 90% of the things my staff are doing today are things that don't enhance the guest experience. So once I take that off of their hands, now I free them up to do things that really create an experience that maybe Airbnb does not. And so that's really how you differentiate the product.
That hotel experience, I always come back to that, because it's about spending more time with the guest, or it's not about sitting in the terrible offices that most hotel managers seem to inhabit. Every time you look over, it's like, is that your office? And it's under the stairs. I mentioned this in an interview. I can't remember who it was with, but yeah, it's just the time spent marketing. That it can be worthwhile to just pay the OTAs a commission so that you can get out and be happier and all that. You talk a little bit about the demographics of hotel management. It's not just the guests that expect messaging, but the staff as well. What do you mean I can't manage this on my phone, or that I have to, I can't text things, or that sort of interface?
Yep.
Does that how much are hotels responding to their staff's needs with these technology products? Do you see that happening more?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this industry, it's one of the industries like hospitality and retail with the highest turnover of any industry. So you're looking at constantly training new staff. You're looking at a highly unionized labor force. And so when you don't have systems and infrastructure in place that can quickly train someone on something that's intuitive, that they're familiar with, you're in a lot of trouble. You have a lot of training costs. You're going to have a lot of hiccups in terms of the guest experience. You're going to have inconsistent service. And so these technologies they're not all about, the kind of fantasy, kind of pie in the sky, create great unique local experiences. It's about creating a great operation. And by having a seamless and efficient and repeatable operation and processes in place that are running on technology, it frees you up to do all those nice things on top of it.
And be a little maybe less stressed out. It's hard to operate a hotel. It's hard to operate any hospitality business. You know? But when it is running well, as a former restaurant guy, that feeling of like walking on a Friday night and having like 100 covers sat and like everything is good and there's like no problems and you can just sit there and enjoy it. Yeah. That high is never. You always get that. That feeling when everything is going great it's like a drug. It's like yes, it's working.
Absolutely.
Of course, on the flip side, that underside when it's not working so well in any operation.
It's the come down.
Yeah, you're just like, why do I do this again? I'm not sure why I like this. So like looking at Airbnb, let's talk about that because it's pretty interesting. And I'm glad to hear you see it as another channel because I had a conversation with a couple hoteliers that. I don't know if everyone's seeing it as a good thing, where I see it as a whole other channel that will cause competitive pressure across the whole ecosystems. This is the greatest thing that's happened to hotels in a long time because the other OTAs are going to have to, shake stuff up.
Yeah, it's a free market now, and kind of as you alluded to before, the OTAs provide a great service, and they deserve to get paid for that service. So I think like the whole war against the OTAs can be a little bit dramatized, but sure, like when you have an industry duopoly like the OTAs have with all the consolidation, you're going to have commissions that are way too high, and everyone knows that. And it's not that the OTAs are evil; they're just operating within the market. And by Airbnb coming in as a major contender and a third player, this creates a more efficient market, a free market to bring those commissions down. And guess what? That's going to put the OTAs in a position where they're forced to innovate and be more crafty and creative and not be kind of like stagnant and complacent. And so that's going to be good for them in the long run. It's going to be good for hoteliers. It's great for Airbnb to open a whole new market. We saw, Cubulus here, the channel manager and SiteMinder both have some of the early connectivity and both are good partners of ours. And it's really cool to see the whole space open up. And we work with a company called Sweetness. I don't know, have you heard of those guys? Yeah. So Sweetness is a great company. They list hotel suites and unique accommodations. So the bachelor party that you're going on or the family vacation that you'd usually go on Airbnb because you can't find a hotel room, Sweetness is going to help you do that. And so I think Sweetness is kind of really, no pun intended, in the sweet spot of what Airbnb will do with the hotel industry and bring in some of these unique accommodation types as part of their whole platform.
I'm a big user of Hotel Tonight. I go different places, and I've really started to come into the thesis that Airbnb is going to buy Hotel Tonight. That's like right now my like prediction that I've been running with because, as they start thinking about building local market teams and all the things that become required of an OTA and having this kind of local touch, I think are very quickly, if they haven't already realized, wow, that's a lot of work, and maybe there's a reason why OTAs charge commission. But having global teams in all these markets is not easy, and I do wonder as they look to build supply maybe faster, like if it goes well, they're going to be looking around and like what is viable is kind of what I start looking around, and I think Hotel Tonight fits really well, and
it's design centric.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and they're in San Francisco. Yeah. Do you think that could happen, that Airbnb could turn it on? Now I think they said it was maybe 12,000 have signed up for Airbnb Plus. Like, it's pretty big numbers. So if it goes really well, really fast, do you think that there might be some quick consolidation on their end too, or is that maybe too aggressive?
I imagine that you'd see some sort of M&A activity around that to wire up the supply. If I were Airbnb, I'd be taking a look at Sweetness. You look at these unique accommodations, you have the supply already online. What you mentioned, Hotel Tonight has an incredible infrastructure for market management teams. They have a great design team, like best in class, certainly of anyone in their peer set. They're a mobile first and mobile only company. So something very kind of in line with where Airbnb is going. They've done services with concierge. So I think there's a lot of overlap in terms of the philosophy. So I hadn't thought about that myself previously, but it makes a lot of sense that those two might fit together.
So the Airbnb Plus thing was like $250, I think, is the average cost of a night there, and then they have this luxury product that they're also saying is coming soon.
Yeah.
What does that mean for the higher end of the market and for higher end hotels, resorts, safaris, things like that? What impact do you see that happening?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, the hotels that create great experiences, we all know anecdotally, like, the millennial generation says, you say, oh, they're these travelers, these local experiences, they don't have a high willingness to pay, they're going to do Airbnb, no one's going to stay in hotels. Guess what? Every one of my friends, once they had the wealth that they could stay in a hotel comfortably or stay at a St. Regis or a W,
done.
You're going to be there.
Yep.
You want to have that level of comfort, that consistency, and that's always going to be there. I think Airbnb will continue moving more and more into that kind of like, I would say like the upper upscale space, and certainly there's unique accommodations that in the luxury space Airbnb will do a better job. But in the end, it's what's the job to be done of the traveler, and which provider is doing a better job at satisfying that demand.
Win on the experience, always.
Absolutely.
I feel like a repeated parrot,
Yeah.
Of course, no one watches these clips, I don't think, the entire way through. I would love one viewer maybe is the whole way, but so I probably just in my head think it. All right, so to wrap it up, are there any type of technology categories that you think are still ripe for disruption? I always laugh, and you maybe can't say this too much to some of them are clients, but how many cloud PMSs do we need? How can there be another cloud PMS or cloud management system for guests? But is there any area that maybe is underserved?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's less about not having great companies serving that demand, and it's more about the adoption on the hotel side. I think it's about creating a really kind of rational commercialization model, because you go from this world where you have these hardware systems that are extremely expensive to install, extremely difficult to replace out, to a cloud service. Now the cloud service is something that the hoteliers are unfamiliar with because it's no longer CapEx, it's OpEx. And so they don't have the buying organization, they don't have the education internally. And now they're thinking, okay, well, before I just needed a property management system, now I need task management, I need guest messaging, I need revenue management. And so how do you kind of fit, like kind of we were talking about before, like can you create the ultimate tech stack for these hotels where it's kind of like there's like AppSumo that does that for other industries, where you create this package that makes it really easy for them to buy, and then you help them pitch it to their ownership group in a really sensible way with a really clear ROI. I think that's the way that you win in this space.
Sounds great. Thank you for that. I appreciate the perspective today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
You can hear it all wrapping up around us. It's pretty loud. This is Nick Vivian from tnoooz. We're here in the live studio at ITB in Berlin. Today's show and the whole week's show has been presented by Travelaer. Again, thank you, and we'll see you soon.